Welcome to the Saturday Night Live Afterparty. This week, we'll be discussing Season 46, Episode 11 of SNL with host Dan Levy and musical guest Phoebe Bridgers. I'm Katherine Coleman, and I'm joined this week by John Murray and Lanny Harms. You can follow Lanny on Instagram at Lanny Harms. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can do so at snlpodcast.com. All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back, Lanny. How are you?
Thank you for having me back. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was really excited to watch this episode of SNL. We've got Dan Levy, who I adore, and Phoebe Bridgers, who I think is super talented. And so I had some really high expectations going in here.
Yeah. Were they hit? I guess we're going to get into it.
Yeah,
we'll get into it. I don't want to spoil anything.
No spoilers. No spoilers. I just want to jump right to it.
But did you guys have high expectations as well? I know, John, we hit on it a little bit last week, but Lanny, are you a big Dan Levy fan?
Well, I'm a big Schitt's Creek fan. I love that show dearly and deeply, and I also saw The Happiest Season, so I feel like what I've seen Dan Levy in, I'm very happy with, and I do feel like I went on a journey with him watching him in Schitt's Creek, kind of go from a shaky first season to like one of the best last seasons of television I've ever seen. So
fair enough. Before we get too far, John, I think we have a new patron to thank, right?
Yes, we do. We want to send our love to Grace Kogan of Rushville, Missouri. That is the home state of SNL's own Heidi Gardner. Grace has joined us at a very generous tier, and we are very happy to have her on board. And so we thank her, but not just her. We thank all of our patrons because they're the ones that make the show possible, and we love them all. And so that's all I got. Thank you, patrons. And why don't we jump into the show?
All right, let's do it. For the cold open, we had the many hosts of NFL Today discuss this year's positivity and inclusivity message of Super Bowl Sunday. So, Lanny, how'd the cold open work for you?
It was not so much a sketch as it was just like a joke machine, I felt like. But, a nice way to get into like a topical way to get into the show that wasn't political. So all of that I applaud. And I thought there were a lot of good jokes within it. Like the ads of themselves, like the Cheez-Its ad, like those were all like good hits. I was just kind of like, when it's like a panel of just people just kind of like going through jokes, it's not the most exciting thing for me, but I think it was effective.
I think that's fair. I was just thrilled that it wasn't a political cold open, and I'm so excited. This is the second week. I mean, last week's was kind of political, but not like a presidential
traditional political satire.
Right, not a traditional political cold open. And then we have this, and I'm like, oh my God, is it really going to happen? Are we going to get a break from some of this stuff and get some more creative stuff going on? So I'm like hesitant to even say anything bad about it. I don't even want to jinx it, But if I have to, I will say, since y'all are begging, that I thought there was a lot of stuff going on here. And I feel like if they had focused more on like one or two aspects of it, each one would have been stronger. Because I loved the ads. I loved AD playing both coaches. I loved each individual piece. But I felt like if they had just picked the strongest one, we could have gone further with it and maybe had a little bit more going on. But, everything worked, and I'm not going to complain. So, John, how'd you feel?
I'm going to complain. You guys have already kind of touched on everything I was feeling. I think that they needed to double down on one joke or, one setup and just go with that. And I think the strongest thing that they had working for them was the commercial. So if they'd cut out all that introductory preamble stuff, that a lot of it fell flat, there was some technical glitches with cuts and just there was a lot of stuff that wasn't very rousing in just the introductions, because I don't know the impressions that they're going for, and most people probably don't. And it just, they weren't getting a lot of mileage there. So if they just cut that all down and just gone straight in, or just, paired it back to the essential, like, here's our panel, blah, 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 blah. Let's look at some commercials, and just gone into what was really, landing some serious blows. I think that would have been tighter and more fun. The 80 thing I'm really torn on, because from an audience standpoint, it's fun because you're like, oh, she's playing both. Like that's so like it kind of says that all the coaches are just kind of these generic angry old men on the sidelines. So there's a joke there, but also just the joke of her going back and forth and doing the quick change is fun. But as like a hardcore SNL nerd, I didn't like it because it was like fake drama, because it wasn't hard for her to switch hats or switch glasses or put on the vest. Like those aren't time consuming. So there wasn't really any feat to this, but they were intentionally putting the camera on her just before she took her hand away from the hat or just before she took her hand away from the glasses. And she's pretending to pant like she just ran across the studio, and they're playing it up to wink at the in-home audience and say, oh, isn't this silly that she's playing both roles? And we're kind of underscoring it with this gag. I like the quick change gag when they're doing it as a feat, like when Jimmy Fallon plays old Travolta, young Travolta, and has to run across the Family Feud stage, in time to be the other character. That's when there's some danger to it. And it's like, that to me is something fun that live TV can uniquely capture. And this kind of felt like them doing sort of like faux danger. So
that's fair.
So
there was some interesting, they had to change her facial hair pretty quick. So we do understand
it was so light.
The makeup department. It was very light.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was, but I didn't even pick up on that. Like if it was really dramatic and these were two completely different characters and you could tell that they were really scrambling, so be it. But in this case, I think they wanted the audience to understand, or feel like this was more of a feat than it was. So I would have just cut both sides off of this, stuck with the commercial parodies, and I think they could have got a lot of mileage just there, and we would have had time for another fresh sketch in the show that we probably aren't going to see because we had a maybe 3 extra minutes here in the cold open. So I think this was an editing issue more than anything, but the 3 gags that they, or at least the last 2 gags that they had, each had merit. Just I would have picked one or the other.
Let's get into the monologue. Dan Levy takes us on a COVID-safe backstage tour where he runs into his dad, Eugene. So, John, you can go first. How'd you feel about the monologue?
Anytime they do a tour of backstage, I'm going to be having fun. Like those just always work for me. I love the nuts and bolts of the show. And I'm going to sound really, really jerky here, but I love it even more now because when they go backstage, I'm like, yep, I've walked that hall and I know exactly what's down there and what station that is. And I know whose room that is. And there's a little bit of just added glee in just seeing that space and being able to project yourself back to, well, some really fond memories that I've had. So, as an indulgence, I really, really like that aspect of it. I thought that Dan was carrying it well, but there was a lot of air in this. There was a lot of time where there isn't anything happening and you kind of feel just the energy starting to sag and things feeling a little awkward. So I don't know how you fix that, because when you're walking around, that you got to cover time and you got to give the camera guy enough time to get where he needs to get for you to get past him and get through a door. And like, there's a lot of mechanics here that are going to require it to, you can't really just jam pack in as much material as you could in a simpler scenario. So I'm a little forgiving that way, but I feel like there was just a few moments that just kind of felt like, oh, well, that should have been funny. Like the Keenan moment. I felt like, that should have hit a lot harder, but there was something in the staging or just how much time it took for the back and forth to happen that it just kind of thudded. So it had a little bit of that, but overall it was fun. And it's probably the first time this season that I think they've done the walk around, and in the midst of COVID, there's a story there. So there's all sorts of reasons why I was enjoying this. I just feel like maybe there was some tightening somewhere along there that maybe they could have done to make some of the bits work better.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously it's going to have more mileage to hardcore fans of the show to go backstage. Even though we've seen it a bunch of times, it's still fun every time. This one, like you said, they had new things to do with it. The pacing was a little off. It wasn't the highest energy one we've seen. I think of like the Lin-Manuel Miranda one where he's rapping his way through backstage. Yeah. That's very high energy. But it is somehow putting Eugene Levy in a plexiglass box is the most organic way to shoehorn him into a monologue. Weirdly, like if he had just walked on stage, wouldn't have felt quite as natural. So that was great. I was really had my fingers crossed for a Eugene cameo. I didn't think it was going to happen. And there he was. So it was fun enough. I don't know that it's the best way to use Dan Levy because at the beginning when he was being heartwarming and a little teary, I'm a sucker for that. So, I think there were maybe some better things to do, but overall, I had fun with it. I think it was a good intro to the show. And yeah, Lanny, how'd you feel?
Well, it's funny because the first note I have is why always the tour? So I am the
To
opposite.
each their own. Yep.
Because as soon as it starts, I'm always just like, oh, they didn't know what to do with this person. They're just like, let's just do the tour.
I don't think that's a wrong assessment.
Right. I mean, I'm never as excited just because I'm like, okay, I've seen the hallways and it's unless you have a really good take. And I think you're right that it would have been a fun thing to do to really lean into the COVID-ness of it because they haven't done that yet. And that's a good opportunity to have a new take on it.
Mhm.
But the pacing was it was honestly kind of cringy a lot of the times. Like there were things happening that were supposed to be jokes that just were not funny and there
Right.
was no feedback on it. And I think they could have leaned into that more and just had like more things back to back to back.
Mhm.
Yeah, but again, I'm not gonna be able to give good notes on this because 'cause I'm not a big fan of the tours.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, let's keep going. Phoebe the trainee leads a not safe for work Universal Studios tram tour. Lanny, did this one work for you?
Um, yes and no. I First of all, I think there was just way too much unneeded justification up top, like with the coffee stuff. I was
Agreed,
like,
yeah.
why are we spending so much time explaining why this guy is hyper? Like he just seems like he's hyper and excited. He's too excited to do a Universal tour. So
And he's a
that's enough.
trainee, so he's supposed to be a
Yeah,
train wreck
yeah,
anyways, right? Like that's all
exactly.
they
Like,
needed.
this is
yeah.
my dream job.
Right, right.
Would have been just fine.
There were so many things going on. Like, I don't need to know any more about your coffee
Right.
intake for the day. So we spent so much time there, and then the reveal of the Marty McFly stuff was so funny. I think that was like one of the best like reveals of a premise and first beats of a premise. I just think it lost steam pretty quickly, and
Mhm.
I think that we were doing the same joke over and over again when there were things like the softener stuff was fun and, like, interacting with the people. We coulda got to that faster, and then we
Mhm.
could have,
Mhm.
like, had that softener, like, lead into the Despicable Me character coming in, and, like, if
Right.
that had been someone's softener, what an organic, great, like,
Oh,
transition to this next one.
yeah.
Like, there's just, like there are a lot of opportunities here
Sure.
to make it, like, a very successful sketch, and I don't think we got there,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was fun at the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly my note was that it seemed to de-heighten from the Back to the Future joke.
Yeah,
The next two jokes were not nearly as insane or as funny,
yeah.
so it felt the pacing got off. Uh, and so then I was toying around with, okay, well, so what if we put one of those first? But like you said, Lanny, neither of them would have been as clear of a reveal of what the game was as the Marty McFly.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think you had some great suggestions, and I agree. I think Dan did such a good job with this. I think he played it really well, and I was having a lot of fun with Ego's character as well.
Mhm.
So fun to be had here, but yeah, it dipped a little in the middle.
Yeah.
John, how'd you feel?
I liked it. This was fun just because of the enjoyment of seeing people kind of be put off. Like the reveal that the tour is stuffed full of like a Christian youth group or something like that. So all of this raunchy sexual stuff that they've been talking about, it's even more inappropriate. So there were a few things like that that were really getting me. Few things that distracted me, like the background not actually lining up with what they're talking about. I was really struggling with that for some reason. You're not supposed to be paying attention to the background, but I'm like a theme park nerd, and it's one of the great tragedies of my life that I've never been to Universal Studios because I really wanted to go on the DeLorean ride when I was a kid. And
Mhm.
so I know the backlot, like I know what I'm seeing in the background, I know where they're going, and I'm, I'm just too engrossed in that. And then when they're saying, well, now we're in the Jurassic Park area, now we're in the King Kong area, and they're clearly not there. But I was really struggling. Like that breaks the illusion for me. So it had, I thought, some fun gags for what it was. Then, like you guys said, there maybe was some missed opportunity in how they laid it out. But as an opener to the show that is fun, that isn't challenging, that's just high energy and goofy, I thought it worked for that. But
Mhm.
what I really thought it accomplished was it put Dan front and center and said, hey, carry a sketch. You're the main character. You are the X factor in this sketch. Go big and sell it. And he did. And that said everything that the monologue didn't say, as far as I was concerned about what he could bring to the show. So in that way, I thought it was a pretty big win.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Let's keep going. Are you looking to live a naughty fantasy? Just check out Zillow.com. So, Lanny, what one about this one?
Look, I love this. I just love it. Maybe it hit real close to home for me.
As New Yorkers, I think we're a little bit more primed to real estate porn.
It may be, yeah. Whatever. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's being a New Yorker, if it's like being cooped up in my house for a year or my apartment for a year. And so looking at houses on Zillow is a huge pastime for me. But yeah, it was so relatable. Like that whole thing, like I was just like, oh God, this is too real. And then I thought the mapping onto a like sexual commercial, like a phone sex commercial was so spot on. Like this was just like textbook, just perfect. And it also was like like I don't always love textbook perfect sketches because I think they can be boring. But this one particularly for me, just personally hit very close to home. And I also have talked to many friends who also have been having a lot of Zillow time lately and Street Easy and all that. So I think this struck a chord at the perfect time. So call me biased, but I loved this so much.
Yeah, I ate this up too. And you hit the same 2 points I was going to make again. The accuracy of this, and honestly, the audacity to call me out like this.
Yeah.
How dare you?
It spoke to me on such a personal level. Like, I literally was looking at $1 million apartment the other day, and I was like, I'm going to tour it. And I messaged the guy, and then he emailed me back, and I was like, I don't want to go tour this. Like, it was just so painfully accurate. I loved it. Like you said, they mapped it really well. I can't say anything that Lanny didn't hit. So, John, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's scandalous how many hours my wife and I spend looking at aspirational real estate listings, and all the more so in the midst of COVID, because I'm sure it's not a New York thing, but for New Yorkers, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, well, I don't want to be in the city. If what are my other options? And they're kind of like living vicariously through what they could get, somewhere out in the state.
Yeah, if I could just have one extra room between me and my husband, that would be great.
So this is definitely striking a chord. It's really, I think, tapping into something that is a shared experience for a lot of people. And as I was watching, I was just thinking, how many times have I finished like putting the kids down to bed and come out to the living room? My wife's got real estate listings like up on our big TV because it's got like a web browser in it, so she can like do that kind of stuff on the big TV. And then I think of like how many hours of mindless scrolling through listings we then end up doing, just chatting about, oh, I like the crown molding and whatnot. And then I think about, wait a minute, how many hours? What else could we have been doing? And then it hits me, late 30s. It's the truth of this is just, it someone was pulling from a very true place, and I connected with it, and I thought it was fantastic. Like you said, Lanny, a perfect mashup to map it into the whole phone sex thing. So no need to, I guess, reiterate all that, but yeah, this was great. This was so much fun, and always well produced with their pre-tapes.
And what was that joke? That was like there's a kitchen in the guest house. Like, oh my God.
Oh, but the property taxes. Yeah, no, it's so titillating.
Great. Yeah, the couple beats that I specifically want to call out were when he said, I would never live in North Carolina, but that was amazing. And then when I think it was Bowen just sliding the slider up for like what the max search was. Yeah. Those were two moments that were big wins.
Oh, so perfect.
It was good.
Congrats to the writer. Congrats to the cast. Congrats to the producers.
So we might as well, because that's Anna Dresden and Streeter and Mikey, right?
Directed by Paul Bugranti, who we've been talking about a lot.
Bravo.
It felt like there was some Anna Dresden in that. That very much
Mhm.
feels like something that she would
Oh, yeah.
enjoy, finding some gags for. Yeah, that big first, like, I think, unqualified win of the night.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well, hate to see it go, but let's get on with it. Next up, don't worry. These unmasked friends have done everything right so far in the COVID world. And John, how'd you feel about it?
I thought this was fun. I did like the slow burn of it. You're cluing into the fact that they're holding each other to a high standard, but not really. And as the masks come down, so do the pretense. And where they took it was kind of sloppy and weird, but I enjoyed how many little COVID cliches they touched on along the way. So I thought there was fun to be had here. So, marginal win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was another one right after that Zillow ad where I was like, why are they spying on me? I don't
Yeah, for
understand.
sure.
So I complain constantly. I'm like, you can't trust anyone. Like, I have friends that insist they take it seriously and do everything right,
Right.
and then they're on Instagram with their entire unmasked extended family trying to kill Pop Pop at his 80th birthday party.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what do you think is safe?
Mm.
So this spoke to me again. They're really tapping into something tonight that is very accurate, and I always appreciate it when a sketch has that core of truth to it. So this was a big win. I thought the "I got the vaccine" beat was a great
Mhm.
heightening moment where, he says, "I carry it with me everywhere."
Mhm.
Or "I take it everywhere" was the line.
Right.
And then I thought Fauci was a really good move to make at the end that kind of wrapped it all up nicely. And yeah, I thought they found fun places to go with this, with the chili bringing in sort of an active moment to a sketch that otherwise was just people talking.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I thought this was a win.
Mhm.
Lanny, how'd you feel?
I think I was a little bit more like in the middle on it. Just because I think that there were those fun specifics and the dialogue up top I think was really entertaining. I think it's just really, really hard to do sketches about COVID because I think that there's like as soon as you start talking about it, I think there's an exhaustion
That's
that
true. Sure.
waves over everyone like right away. And we are at that point.
Agreed.
So I personally have a hard time like coming back from there and, like, ready to laugh about it, because
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
just because like, the things also are, like, when you're scrolling through Twitter, scrolling through Instagram, I'm constantly hearing about people complaining about people not doing it right, and so, like, that kind of premise, I find, like, also exhausting on top of that.
Mhm.
So with the idea and with the theme of it all, there was a lot it was working against, and I think I just started thinking about how difficult this topic is to actually, like, write comedy about, and I
Right.
think they did a
Mhm.
pretty good job. I think they did find, like, fun character choices, and again, the dialogue was well written. Um, it felt lukewarm to me for all
I think
those
that's
reasons.
Fair.
fair. It's definitely not escapist. You're right. There is some baggage
Mhm.
built in anytime you go COVID. And I think that's maybe why something like the Universal tour worked a lot better for me out of the gate to just
Mhm.
kind of sort of reset your palate because it
Mhm.
doesn't pull in anything that has baggage right now, nothing political, nothing COVID related. So yeah, I think that's really fair. And maybe that's why, as much as I thought the beats that they were walking through were fun enough,
Yeah.
I would and my final take was, yeah, I'm still just kind of lukewarm. Like I didn't get any big laughs out of it. And so maybe you're right. There's just something there that isn't quite as fun.
Yeah, I don't think you can't do COVID-related comedy. I just think you're setting yourself up for a harder
Mhm.
job.
It's a
It's
handicap.
just it's just gonna be harder to do. You have to be that much more, like, clever and surprising with it, for it to really hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great point. Let's move on then. In the ongoing struggle of Black Americans, Dr. Thibodeau highlights white people. John, what'd you think about
The often overlooked white people.
it? Yes,
I
always.
liked it. I know a few of these people, and so that was fun. The overzealous teacher that maybe has more passion than genuine insight. I can see that character. I think that's fun to play with. Obviously, there's criticism to be made about the Johnny Come Lately activists that are rallying for the cause on Instagram or whatever, the
Mhm.
slacktivism. So there's a there's definitely a comment to be made there. And so I did have some fun with that. Um, So I'm not really sure what to say. I think it was smart in being able to parade these characters out to kind of take a sharp look at them and kind of cut through the BS a little bit. But I didn't find it exceptionally funny. Like I just wasn't getting big laughs out of it, but I thought it was, fun enough exploration.
Yeah. I At the risk of taking this way too seriously, I will say that, like, I thought this was really smart in the sense that it's a real thing. Like, you can love Black culture and still be racist, and that's,
Sure.
ultimately what they're trying to say to this. Like Kyle's character, he really loves the culture, but, like, he's full of microaggressions. He's constantly saying things that, that are just not quite appropriate. So I thought it was really smart, and I thought it was a really cool thing to point out, and I realized that by saying that, I'm almost the butt of the joke in this sketch.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, you lost me at microaggression, but say your piece.
um, but yeah, I thought this was great. I thought it was smart, and I thought it had something to say, which I liked. And again, this is something that I'll point out again when we get to the It Gets Better sketch, is just the representation that we're seeing is really awesome, because, like, in the history of SNL, there have not always been enough Black cast members to do this sketch, right? And I think that's really cool. So, Lanny, what'd you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make really good points. I've been thinking a lot lately about writing an idea of a sketch rather than writing what's funny for a sketch.
Mhm.
And I felt like this fell into a lot of the traps that I have been noticing with people who write sketches uh that feels more like a Twitter joke, or that feels more like a
Mhm.
Twitter idea. And my fiance is much more like on Twitter and on Reddit than I am, but he was like, we were watching it together, and like he said, like there's a lot of tweets about like people like this, and there's plenty of
Mhm.
fodder around like white people like meaning well but tripping over themselves and like doing harm along the way. Plenty make to make fun of, a lot of stuff that's funny about that, and it works well in a tweet. And I'm not sure how well it works in a sketch. And it felt like we were trying to put those people into the sketch, and then they put that into this kind of what felt like a contrived setting. Like, it just
Mhm.
didn't feel organic, and that's to me, I think that's why it wasn't hitting, because we were
Mhm.
like we had no base reality that we were coming from with these, like, 'cause the premise of the show of just, like, let's talk about Black culture, but, like, let's bring white people into it, and then, like, have the pattern for each person be the exact same, or for each pair
Mhm.
to be the
Mm.
exact same. Like, you get ahead of it so quickly. And also the thing that's, like, frustrating about it too is that, like, for all of like, how wonderful it is to have, like, all of these Black actors in, like, the SNL cast to have these roles, all they got to do was roll their eyes at white people, and that's not
True.
really
Mm.
giving them something fun to do and not a showcase of them as comedians. And that, like so I feel like with the sketches like this, when you're writing an idea, it almost ends up feeling more like a thesis than it does like a funny
Mhm.
sketch.
I
And
think that's fair.
yeah, so yeah, those were my feelings on it, and I feel like there was something funny going on here. There were
Mhm.
at the root of it. I just don't think we put it in the right setting.
Yeah, like, as you were talking, I was starting to think, maybe this would have worked better as a weekend update feature.
Maybe, yeah.
Mm.
Alright, well, let's keep going.
Okay.
Let's get into Phoebe Bridgers performing Kyoto and I Know the End. Lanny, do you like Phoebe Bridgers? Was this your first exposure to her?
This was actually my first exposure to her, and I know that she's, like, very popular right now, so I was excited to, like, get to know her. And the first performance I thought was cool, like, to get to understand her image and her voice and, like, just her vibe, I guess. But the second performance was really impressive to me, like, when it flips into, like, her, like, doing the metal voice, and then the guitar solo,
Key
like
change, yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Oh my god, this is not what I was expecting, and this you are someone." I thought I do really love, like, pop stars and, musicians and, like, the whole image that they put out, and I thought I was understanding who she was, and I just get so delighted to be surprised by people. And then afterwards, I went and looked at all of the music videos that she put out in the last, like, couple of months, and I was like, "Oh my god, she's, like, so fresh." She is so,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, like, I don't know enough about her, so because I literally just like dive deep into it today.
Mhm.
But I'm excited to see her journey because this was a cool debut.
Yeah, I really like Phoebe Bridgers. I think she has such a unique voice that I really love, and she is a amazingly talented songwriter.
Hmm.
Like that is where she really shines is in the lyrics. These performances weren't, especially exciting, but I knew not to necessarily expect that going in, so I was fine with it. With the exception of, the second half of the second song.
Hmm.
The But yeah, everything was good. I'm not sold on the guitar smash, and I do suspect that John has a lot of thoughts on it.
I
Oh
do. I have a
boy.
few. Are you
Alright, hit
officially
us.
throwing to me? Are you done
Yes,
with
go for
okay.
it.
Um so my hot take is I think Phoebe Bridgers succeeds where Machine Gun Kelly failed last week. There's something
Okay.
very familiar about her sound. Like this, she's not breaking a
Mhm,
whole lot of new ground, especially with that first song. I've heard this sound before. Growing up, there's
mhm,
a strain of indie rock that this is very true to, and um,
mhm,
so in much the same way that Machine Gun Kelly was pulling in a lot of like California mid '90s punk stuff into his stuff, she's definitely drawing on things that are familiar to me that I like. So
mhm,
that helps right out of the gate. But with Machine Gun Kelly, I wasn't finding anything exciting about his lyricism or his vocals. And so there was a lot of stuff that felt weak and it very much felt like a debut offering.
mhm,
Whereas Phoebe Bridgers, uh, it felt a lot more competent and just well rounded. And I think you guys already touched on just the lyricism of it, felt a cut above for this kind of music. So I felt it was strong. Like I felt as an artist, she's bringing something good. And so I was just enjoying it as just kind of a slow, mellow, like I'm not going to be excited by what she's bringing because she's just at her mic doing her indie rock thing, and I'm cool with that. That's definitely my scene. I'm fine. And then uh, she decides to like stare down her guitarist, and they have like a rock god face off, and she's on her knees, and I'm like, oh, isn't that adorable? That's what happens when nerds try to rock out, and like this is so fun. And then she decides to wail and decides to go full on metal, and the band breaks out, and I'm like, okay, is she doing this ironically? Like, does she know how silly this is to be like
mhm.
having that kind of a left turn in her song? Like, as much fun as it is to see, like, hey, I wasn't expecting that, and oh, isn't this fun to watch? um it seemed, I didn't know if she was doing it with a clear sense of irony or not. And so that's
Mhm.
where I need to bone up on Phoebe Bridgers, because if this is who she is and she just has the soul of a rock god, in the body of a little blonde waif, then I love her even more, because that sounds like the perfect woman to me. But anyways,
I think that is more the case.
and maybe it is, but it caught me, out of nowhere,
Mhm,
and I just didn't know how to process it. So it was fun to watch and inscrutable in a way, because it just wasn't what I was expecting. And to see her try to smash a guitar, and she's got something on her amp that was meant to like spark. Like, this is something that
mhm.
I think was definitely
It was
staged.
premeditated.
But she just doesn't have the upper body strength to do it. So she's, it takes her what, a half a dozen swings to even, hope to crack
I
that
Mhm.
think that's
board.
part of it.
And
That
that
was
is,
Oh,
that
okay.
was the part that I loved so much. I was like,
Mhm.
I mean, as a small blonde woman, I was
Sure.
very like proud of her in so many
Yes.
ways, just because like I feel like when I saw her, you have all of these preconceived notions. Like you were saying,
Right.
it's not like a new sound. It's not a
Yeah.
new like her voice. It's like she has a very pretty, very nice
Mhm.
voice, very nice to look at. And then she just is like, but I also am a fucking amazing guitarist, and I can also
Mhm.
like I can wail like a metal. Like that was an
Right.
impressive like metal wail. And then also like, and I'm gonna smash my guitar. And you know what? I'm gonna smash it in the way I'm gonna do it. And it's
Sure.
probably gonna take a long time. Yes, I did decide I was gonna do this before that. but like, you're just going to watch me do it for 15 takes. And that the fact that it took that long made me like respect it that much more, that she
Yeah.
wasn't giving it
She
up.
committed.
Like she was committing. There was no part of
true.
that wasn't committed
Yes.
of that whole performance. And I feel like flipping my perspective and flipping my paradigm of what a person who looks and sounds like that should be or how they should act. And I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I was eating it all up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's still something that is just so weird.
It's confusing.
When you contrast what you're seeing with what you think she sees herself as and what she's projecting. It was interesting and fun and adorable. And maybe that's not the word that she'd want people to describe her as, but I thought that the whole thing was adorable. And so now I'm definitely going to go out and, track down a little bit more of what she does and try and wrap my head around what Phoebe Bridgers is actually all about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she definitely loves to play with that preconceived notion of who she's going to be.
Well, mission accomplished.
She succeeded.
Yep.
Very impressed.
Okay. Well, let's get into Weekend Update. For their lead-in, Jost and Che discuss Marjorie Taylor Greene's pure insanity. John, were you warm on Weekend Update this week?
I thought it was a step forward from where we've been. The last couple Weekend Updates, I felt that the energy wasn't so great. I feel like they were having more fun with this. I think it's obvious that without Trump, on the one hand, it benefits because they can stick with some more like lighthearted fare and get into stuff that isn't political sooner. And I think that helps Weekend Update overall, but it kind of makes the political stuff stand out as like angrier and more agenda driven than when it was all Trump. Like when you went into Weekend Update expecting that the first 5 minutes was nothing but here's Trump's crazy of the week, you're like, well, that's just what Weekend Update is now. But when they come out and they have like a couple lighthearted jabs at Biden, and then Jost goes on a really like scathing critique of this congressman, senator, whatever she is, and you can tell it's not about making a joke, it's about making a point. And you see that he's passionate about really wanting to knock this lady down a peg. In the era of Trump, that just felt like what late night comedy was, but now it feels like, oh, I was kind of hoping maybe we were past this. So I just want him to get on to the silly stuff. As soon as they transition away from politics, I'm all in. But just those little vestigial bits of angry Weekend Update, I'm ready for that to be done.
I think that's fair enough. It's all different strokes for different folks, right? I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is so uniquely crazy that there are plenty of great jokes to be made there. So I was enjoying it. And I thought this was a particularly strong night. Last week felt a little bit lower energy. And this one, I was laughing at almost everything. Like, I thought they were really on fire. No big misses.
Yeah, it was
tonight.
definitely a step forward for sure.
Yeah, I was really impressed and I was having a great time.
Yeah, I found this to be very impressive joke writing all the way. Like, it was kind of like my fiance said, like, this was like feels like it's watching basketball, like a really good basketball layup from Michael Jordan, but like with jokes. Like I just felt like they were really on their game, and like it was so consistent. And I like I think though, even though it did get political, I mean, I think Weekend Update to a certain extent is like they're always going to be, because it's weekend, like it's the news like now. So I think I get that, and I do get that it's exhausting though. But like things when they introduced Trump as like a new social media influencer, like was hit so hard. And I just thought that the joke about did I do that was an Urkel like catchphrase, not an OJ. That was so impressive. Like that, I felt like that was just, it was exciting to me as a writer, just to like see that be so tight the whole time.
All right, well, I'm gonna count that as a win. Let's get into our first feature. The people behind the Child Cancellation Project are here to expose the racist, sexist, homophobic elementary schoolers of the world. Lanny, did this win for you?
Yes. This was so good. This was so like, what a fun way to like make fun of that kind of culture, or not culture, make fun of that thing, that Twitter thing, in a really refreshing and universally funny way. Like I guess it is kind of I don't know. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was like watching the little kids like
Mhm.
just seeing two adults rag on this adorable photo of a little kid and be like, "Are you gonna support him? Are you gonna defend this?
He's a
this
turd.
He's a pig. This little demon." I don't know. I just thought this was very funny. I got a lot of belly laughs out of it.
Yeah, I think this is a really fun idea of like what's the potential extreme of cancel culture. It's like,
Yes.
okay, let's cancel kids, you know. It's fun in that way. The tweets were all great. Everything was great. I To nitpick one thing, the wardrobe seemed weird.
Oh.
Okay.
The
Like
the two
like,
people's wardrobe?
yeah,
Not the
like, I
kids,
thought
right?
yeah, Heidi and Mikey's. Like, I thought Heidi's was good. Mikey's didn't feel I was getting different vibes from it than, like, super woke man.
Huh.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought maybe there was something in that stereotype they could have played in differently. Maybe that's exactly what they wanted. Maybe it's something that's over my head and I missed it, and this is actually very accurate. But something about it felt off to me, and that's the nitpickiest, stupidest thing to say about a Weekend Update feature, and I admit that.
No,
But
I think that's valid. No, just to piggyback on what you're saying is just that, like, because this was a kind of a visual joke, right? We're more making
Mhm,
fun of the tweets, and we don't really know
mhm,
who's writing those types of tweets normally because it's all online. So
Mhm.
how do
right.
those people dress? I think that's a tricky thing, and it's
Yep.
valid. I think that you're like, that's not what I've imagined people who
Sure.
write
Mhm.
The
like that on
villains in my
Twitter.
fantasy dress
Right,
totally
yeah.
different. Yeah.
How dare you not consult me? Uh, yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
a tricky thing.
so to nitpick something like that is pretty minor and really says a lot about how well the actual bit went because that's all I have to say. So,
Mhm.
John, what'd you think?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't really have a critique. I wasn't too hung up on the look of our terrible people because they just seem sufficiently terrible. And I'm equal opportunity like that. I don't care how you look. If you give me like terrible vibes, and I feel like Heidi especially, like oh yeah, I know you. There's no reasoning with you.
Mhm.
I thought that was coming through loud and clear. And a good vehicle that might even recur. Like there's going to be no shortage of tweets and scathing cancel things that you could uh tack onto this. So I bet we see these characters back, and I'd
Yep.
be happy to see it. So this was a win.
Mhm.
I had fun.
Yeah, kids aren't gonna stop saying awful things.
Yeah.
Get them in check.
Mhm.
Cancel
All
'em.
right. Well, our next feature is Twins the New Trend, here to review songs they've somehow never heard. And I didn't learn until today that these are real people.
Mhm.
Oh,
Did
I
you
didn't
know
Oh,
that these are real
I didn't
people?
realize that.
I'd seen the Bohemian Rhapsody one. I see it pop up in my feed every now and again. I never watch them because it's so obvious that they're leaning into the
Mhm.
expressiveness of experiencing it on camera. Like, there's something not quite genuine when they know they're being
Okay.
filmed. And I think they captured that. Like, you can just tell the shtick, them having to the music flows through them no matter what it is. They got to put on a performance. They got to get the
Mhm.
clicks. They got to get the clicks. So, yeah, no, these are definitely real guys. And what they were saying about them was very true to the real YouTube videos.
Yeah, so I had fun with it. I thought it was great not knowing who they were. It seemed to me I was like, "What?" The songs they picked seemed like a weird place to start, not knowing who they are. Like, I was
Mhm.
like, "Why don't we start with, like, Old Town Road or, yeah, I don't know, whatever people listen to." Although I guess anyway. So I was like, "We're starting with the Friends theme song, seems weird," but now that I know that they're real people and they've already reviewed everything, it's like it seems natural to say, like, okay, if they don't know Jolene, what else might not they know?
Right.
They're not going to know what Friends is. They're not going to know what NBC is. They're not going to know what a commercial is. They're not going to know what a Baby Shark is, let alone the song Baby Shark. So I thought they did a really good job. If this, then what?
Right.
Sort of hitting it. And I had fun with it. I thought it was really great, and now I'm really interested to go watch these guys a little bit because they seem like a good time,
Mhm.
even if it is contrived.
Yeah, if you can suspend your disbelief and accept that they honestly have never heard these songs, then go have fun
Mhm.
with it. But that's also half the joke here is what
Mhm.
type of people genuinely have never heard the ABCs. And that's almost how
Right.
ridiculous it is to think that they haven't heard some of the songs that they're reviewing. Yeah,
Right.
but I think we're neglecting our guest here a little bit. So I'm just
No,
gonna say
Yes.
that.
I'm soaking it all up just because I didn't know that these people were real. So now I feel like I don't know how to review this segment. But at the same time, like I think that the characters were strong enough that they didn't lean on needing to have seen them in the
Mhm.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's a huge win because that's a hard thing to do. And I think that I also know that that's a pretty common YouTube thing is like young
Reactions, yeah.
kids, yeah, listening
Mhm.
to songs that I can't believe they haven't heard. So I was getting ahead of the joke a little bit. It felt a little bit like especially when they were doing like Baby Shark and stuff. I was like, okay, they're just gonna like this every time. I was craving them to not like a song. Like
Yeah,
how
that
do
would've been
they
fun.
react? Yeah, how do they react
Mhm.
when it's a song everyone like collectively loves that they've never heard before and they're just like, this is bull. Um, so yeah, I was craving that, but then when the alphabets came up, I was like, okay, this is getting just silly. But then when he was like, I've never heard letters lined up before, man,
Kids
they
everywhere
should.
should be listening to this.
Yeah, I was like, all right, yeah, you got me, you got me.
Yeah.
I think I was successful. Very good.
Yeah, and I love Keenan and Chris. I think they have a great dynamic. I'm
Yeah.
really excited to see Keenan's new show, and I'm
Mhm.
excited that he
Yeah.
pulled Chris into that. And yeah, we'll see where they go. Let's get into the back half of the show. A group of people at a bar perform that famous Super Bowl song. You know the one, right? Hot damn. So, Lanny, how'd you feel about it?
It's okay. I yeah, I feel like I'm starting to catch on that Cicely comes in just to do a musical sketch. Just okay, all right, I
That's
see
her
you, I
favorite. Yep.
see you. But that's okay. I think this did go somewhere like pretty fun eventually. I think we spent way too much time up top, like with the four people in the bar, just like knowing the bartenders or saying no to the bartenders
Right.
over and over and over again. It like
Mhm.
just wasn't fun to watch, and it was just like, okay, where are we going? And then when we like they started singing and then just couldn't help themselves and kept getting it become more and more as a Broadway number, that was like quite fun. Total
Mhm.
cop out to go behind the bar to do the tap dance though. Jeez. I was like, okay, okay, okay. But I get not everyone knows how to tap dance, but if you're gonna do
Mhm.
it, do it. Uh,
Learn
but
fast.
yeah. But so, yeah, I think that there's ways that this could have been more successful. I think starting, like, kind of where the sketch was, like, a minute or a minute and a half in, like,
Mhm.
starting there, and then you could have, like, really had, like, a more fun place to go and could have, like, brought in more fun production things. Um, but otherwise, the premise was, like, pretty, okay. That's
Yeah.
fine.
This might be one that works a little bit better for people who watch the show
Yeah.
religiously because we've seen sketches like this before.
Mhm.
So, like, Cecily routinely will come in and say, "You know the song," and no one knows the song, and then everyone turns out to know the song. So as soon as they started that bit, I knew where it was going to end up, right? And I
Mhm.
was having fun with it, imagining how we were going to get there. Um, and I love these sketches. The Thanksgiving one with Steve Carell's my favorite one.
Mm.
This one is not quite as strong as that one. I think partially because the song is not quite as catchy, but that's pretty nitpicky. This was fun. I thought the tap break behind the bar was actually pretty fun because it's that meta. There's a lot of meta stuff in this episode of like,
Mhm.
yeah, we don't know how to tap dance, and let's call out the fact that none of us know how to tap dance, and then to get Keenan saying those taps aren't real. Uh, it's a good time. If a cue card says Keenan reacts, I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Got a lot of that
So
tonight. Got a lot of that tonight.
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
I had fun with this. I didn't think it was exceptional. John, what'd you think?
Fun. Like you said, we've seen it before. I'm thinking of the Chris Pine game night. That was the one that was like, oh, I get it. This is a Cecily indulgence. So anytime she's got a host that's kind of a kindred spirit that is into show tunes, Broadway stuff, she knows she can sell this and
Mhm.
like get them to rally for it. And I think she had an ally in Dan this week. I think that's
Mhm.
probably why we saw one of these, because it always seems like it's with a host that likes to play with Cecily. Because she'll do one of these every week if she was allowed.
Right.
So I do like that. I do like knowing that she has a lot of fun with these, and she really knows that part, like knows the cadence and energy of how to deliver Showtime lines. Like she really has that zazz. Yeah, there's little Liza in everything she does. So that's always fun to watch. But you're right, this isn't the strongest one of these we've seen. They've had some where the reveal and the winning over of the people feels a little more organic than it did here. So yeah, there is some stuff that maybe just didn't transition into the bar version of the sketch as well as we've seen it in some other settings. But still, just knowing how much fun everybody on screen is having, and their choreography could not have been worse. And it just like, it's one of those delicious messes that this is an indulgence. They're having fun. And I'm okay just watching them put on this little production, whether it falls apart or not. It's still just enjoyable for me to watch.
Fair enough. So a little bit more middle of the road, but it's fine.
It was
fun enough.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah. A fun mess. That's a great way to put it,
Yeah.
John. Good job. Up next, two friends do a very passive-aggressive objection at a wedding. Lanny, did this one win?
I have some notes.
Of course.
That's why we pay you the big money.
Hey, that's right. Yeah, like I thought I liked the offbeat cadence of these two characters. I thought it was very refreshing because I feel like you can kind of get into the rhythm of like sketch, okay, like person reveal a premise and then blah 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 blah, like hit. And I really enjoyed the awkwardness and that they were not afraid to just kind of like weirdly milk moments in like ways that were surprising, and that made me giggle. And then like I think the whole premise of doing an indirect objection at a wedding is very funny. And I loved it like about like a minute and a half in, and once we started going into other moves, I think they lost it. Like especially when they ask the mom like how she feels and she directly says that she doesn't like him but is like, "But you don't want to hear from me." I thought that deflated it cuz what we're playing is like an indirect. So if literally like her mom is just like, "Oh, I don't it's I mean if you like if she had taken on that characteristic that and then we could have like gotten to a point where we blowed up everyone and just like the whole congregation is doing that same like it's I guess it's okay.
Sure.
And that's a very
that high pitched.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think that's a very funny like new take on an objection wedding sketch because those are very common. And I think that that's a very funny thing to like explore because like how often have you been to a wedding like that where you're just like, I mean, that's fine if they want to like do they, but yeah, it's fine. I don't want to push. It's not a big deal. Like, I think that's very fun. So I think that this could have gone in the last beat I thought was very weak, very like ugh. I hate when it's a bad like the last line was just like, God, I can't remember. I can't remember.
They get aroused. He stands up for himself, and they're like, "Oh,
yeah."
So they it's hot. They get hot. Yeah.
Yeah. It just was. I just felt like it really pooped out. Really pooped out.
All right. Interesting. I'm going to say somewhat the opposite.
Okay.
In that I felt like the pacing was off just in the sense that they spent so long doing the back and forth and then they were like, "Oh, maybe we should have like two more moves." So now they're going to text about it and then they're going to get on board with it. So it was just it felt uneven in that sense. And I liked those other moves. Like I liked that they would be like, and maybe they're out of order, but I liked that they would be so passive aggressive to openly be talking over text messages about the wedding.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a fun move. And then I enjoyed when they were suddenly on board with it. You know, Dan Levy saying "Rail me, Daddy" is going to be my gif of the year. So yeah, I liked the moves they went, and I wish they would have gotten to them a little quicker so that they could have explored it further because that back and forth was so long. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
I thought there was something here. The way that Kate and Dan play off each other was really fun. Like that was the core of it. Those two characters and the way that Kate and Dan kind of brought them to life, I thought was really working. Did it go anywhere too exciting? Not really. Did it linger on the back and forth denial of any, objection? Like, did they hang on that too long? Yeah. So it wasn't perfect, but I did like the characters. And so I think all I can really say is I think Dan put this one over. I was just so enjoying his energy and just how well he plays just a passive aggressive snot. Like just,
Mhm.
he's just the
That's a
worst.
strong suit.
And he does it in a way that you love to watch. And that really is his gift. And that's what, makes Schitt's Creek so magical too in many ways. So
Mhm.
I do like that they were utilizing him well, but
Yeah.
not the strongest sketch.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Let's get to the 10-1. A revisit of the It Gets Better project to say that it also gets other things. Lanny, did this win?
Yeah, yeah, and you know what I'll say? I thought this was very funny. It felt like a very, like, real take on, like, a real experience of people within this community. It felt very, like it was written by people of that who identified with this sketch, and, um and it felt very grounded. Like, this is, I feel like, to me, what I was talking about, like, writing an idea versus writing something, like, a funny about the
Mhm.
idea. This one was so successful in, like, writing the funny thing about the idea, and I
Mhm.
think that that is, like, a good example of, like, I think there's a version of this sketch where it could have gotten a little bit, like, more of just an idea that wasn't actually, like, causing people giggles, and this
Mhm.
one, like, this stuff with the iguana things and, like, I feel like the type of, like, the joke where it's like, I'm so happy that I can visit my wife in the hospital. I'm just very upset that she's in the hospital because she was mauled by an iguana. Like I feel like that is like such a good example of like how this was a
Mhm.
well-written sketch and like a really good point of view. And you can still have your point of view in a sketch while also having it be funny. So
Mhm.
I thought this was very successful in that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I loved this again, just like the with the lifting our voices sketch. We have a lot of gay cast members we can put
Mhm.
into this. A handful of gay writers worked on it. That's fantastic. The representation in this episode is awesome.
Yeah.
I I loved this sketch. I think it's so accurate. Because uh we're not always the most welcoming community, people within the gay community love to kind of bully each other, and then that passive aggression thing that we got on in the last episode. So, like, they're speaking to, like, these accurate things too. Um, just really great, and the iguana thing is yet another moment in this episode where I'm like, "Why are you watching me?" Because I accidentally adopted the office bearded dragon during quarantine, and now he's
What?
mine, and he poops on my floor. So, it
Wow.
I'm just feeling very seen, and I had a great time with this. John, how'd you feel?
I just love the thought of you being menaced by a tiny little dinosaur. I think that's that's joyous.
Mhm,
You guys said it all. I'm not going to rehash it because I think all the points have been made. Well written, astute, well produced. Yeah, they obviously found each little vignette highlighted something unique. So you never
mhm,
felt like they were just repainting the same joke over and over
Mhm.
again. And then of course,
right.
they have this little through line of the iguana just keeps continuing to be the consternation of Kate, which is fun. So
Mhm,
there was a lot working in how this was written and structured and produced. And I really can't think of anything to critique it on. I thought it worked perfectly well. Pretty strong way to finish the night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Big win. Let's get into our overall thoughts. Lanny, what was your moment of the night?
Moment of the night for me has to be the reveal of Zillow. The reveal of the phone call into,
Mhm.
like, what is the sexy thing? Like, you're in your mid-30s, and what are you doing instead? You're on Zillow. Honestly, yeah, I just felt so seen, and I just felt so, like, oh, how comforting it feels when you're just like, "Oh, everyone else too."
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the same thing because it started and I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be a music video. Oh, no, it's a commercial parody. Oh, and it's a Zillow commercial parody?" That turn it took, and I was immediately on board. It was unexpected, and it was so well executed. I ate it up. So that's my moment too. John, how about you?
Phoebe Bridgers releases her inner rock god.
Yeah.
There was nothing that just had me wide-eyed going like, this is amazing and I don't understand it. And what is this? And I'm having so much fun. And who is she? Um,
Ugh.
it just tickled me. So that was fun and unexpected. And what I said last week, Catherine, when we were talking about the upcoming hosts and musical guests is I love it when I have no idea who they are and they surprise me.
Mhm.
And that's what she
Yep.
accomplished. And that was a moment.
Oh shoot! Now I need to up because I loved when she.
That's okay. We'll give you a mulligan.
The moment when she came in with that metal voice, my jaw dropped. So how can that not also be moment of the night? So that I have two.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fair.
We'll make
fair.
the exception.
All right. Well, let's get into our best sketch. Lanny, I think I know what it might be, but hit us.
Zillow.
Yeah.
Baby Zillow. It's Zillow. Zillow all day. Zillow all night. I'm going to go to bed just thinking about Zillow and how perfect of a sketch it was.
Yep. Same. It was amazing. I've watched it so many times already. It's just so true and so well executed and so funny. I loved everything about it. There was nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I can agree with that. Fun, a lot of truth on display tonight. There's a lot of sketches that were saying things that, like you said, Catherine, that maybe hit a little too close to home. But this was perfect. And like I said, this is I how many hours I've spent just kind of hunched on the couch, just flicking through Zillow ads. So great that one of the writers found that and then they figured out the perfect way to present it. So yeah, Zillow all day, all night, Zillow.
That's
the theme of this episode. All right, let's talk about the MVP. Lanny, who's your MVP?
My MVP, it's got to be Keenan. I think he really, like, especially in the sketches that, for me, were very lukewarm, were entertaining because Keenan was in it. Like, especially the singing bartenders, and then also the Universal Studios tour. Like, those are both ones that, like, got hiccupy and, like, weren't so strong, but, like, him being there and giving those reactions just, like, really, really gave it some glue, and, yeah, it's gotta be Keenan, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like Keenan's been doing sketch comedy his whole life or something.
Can you yeah, maybe we should, like, tell him, like, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's a good pick. I was torn between Bowen, Keenan, and Dan. And I'm having a hard time even now deciding where to land. Bowen wasn't in a ton of stuff, but when he was, he did a fabulous job. Keenan, I think, obviously Keenan's insanely talented and he carries a lot of sketches. And good old Dan, I love Dan. And he did a great job and I'm so happy for him. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Dan. Why not? He's here. I'm so glad he's here. I thought he did a fabulous job in the Universal tour. Like you said, John, he started off, they gave him a sketch right off the bat that said, prove that you can be here. And he did it.
Yeah.
And then he went on and had great performances all over the place. So yeah, Dan Levy, that's my MVP.
Man, I was hoping you'd go with Bowen because then you wouldn't have stolen my thunder because I am going with Dan as well. He made it obvious that he's super comfortable. He's not fumbly. He can deal with sketches that have some choreography and some, other stuff going on. Like there wasn't anything that ever looked like it flustered him. And when he got some fun dialogue to chew on, he chewed it pretty hard and like really delivered kind of his patented style and just carried some pieces that otherwise I don't know if they would have gotten over without what he was bringing. So if you can save, I think two sketches, then that is definitely worth an MVP nod.
There we go. All right, let's get into the big one. On a scale of classic, great, decent, weak, or train wreck, how would you rate this episode? Lanny, up first.
I don't feel I have the authority to call anything a classic quite yet, so I'm gonna go with great, just because this was really, really good. I think you really got to be shooting for the moon to get classic, but like all around, this was a very solid night. I was like so delighted and surprised many, many times, and I feel like when I watch SNL, it tends to be like one that really hits, and then you're
Mhm.
happy or for 2. But I felt like there was, like, multiple that were, like, really hitting, and, like, Weekend Update being so strong, and then the 2
Mhm.
pre-tapes being, like, so, so strong, like, almost perfect. Um, yeah, and then because then the other ones that were live were still really fun because they were really great performances too, so,
Mhm.
um, yeah.
Second week in a row, I toyed with giving it a classic.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a lot of hype for Dan Levy. A lot of people were hoping this was gonna happen this season. People really excited to see him host, so that's already given it a boost towards, like, an episode that's really capturing a moment that people are excited about. And we had some great stuff. Nothing fell flat. There was nothing that I did not like. But I don't think there were enough purely unqualified wins to give it the classic, because there were a few that were they were good, they were fun, I liked them, but not super thrilled. Um, but it's about as close to a classic as you can get almost, we
Wow,
had a great musical guest,
you're doing quite the tap dance here.
fantastic update. I know, I do this so well.
But she's doing it
Great
behind the
update.
bar, so I can't see it.
Yeah, tons of great stuff, but just not quite enough Zillows in there to get it fully into classic, but
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
solid, great episode. John, where are you gonna land?
Last week, I thought they delivered a solid episode. Like I thought, you know what? There's a lot that feels right about what they're doing right
Mhm,
now. And if they could iron out a few other spots, then I think we're getting into great territory. Weekend Update was one of them. And I feel like this week was an improvement. So that was about all I needed them to up their game on last week for me to feel like we are really, getting into some strong stuff. So this week, I'm in agreement with what you guys said about the sketch fair overall, that we had some really high highs. And even, the worst of it was just kind of middling. Like there wasn't anything that
mhm.
was really putting me off. But to just be the little bit of icing on the cake, we had a musical act that I was really charmed by, whereas last week I wasn't. And we had a solid Weekend Update. So you put those two pieces in, and I think you've got a solid, great episode. And I think when they trim it down for the 10 o'clock reruns, they're going to have a pretty perfect hour of comedy. So great.
Very good. So, we're all really loving it. Great, strong episode, great
Mhm.
host. I hope we see Dan Levy back. I hope he
Oh,
stays in the spotlight and has a fantastic career ahead of him.
mhm,
Uh, and yeah, very solid episode.
Second that.
Now
mhm.
yeah. Now, Lanny, speaking of good work, where can we see your stuff? Do you have anything coming up?
Yes, I do. So my sketch team After School Snack has a show on Twitch on the Squirrel NYC Twitch page, and that's going to be March 3rd at 9:30 p.m. And then I'm also gonna be a part of their Doomsday Commemoration Mega Show on March 13th with Sketch Cram, my, show that I do that we do a sketch show, that we start writing in the morning, and we present the final sketches by the end of the night, and we're gonna be finishing that marathon of shows that they have on March 13th on the same Squirrel NYC Twitch page, so check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I can say that I've enjoyed everything After School Snack has put out, and Sketch Cram is one of my favorite UCB shows ever. So definitely tune in. You're gonna see some good stuff.
Yeah, and that is the thing about the March 13th show. That is the 1-year anniversary of UCB shutting its doors because of
Oh,
COVID. So it's the Squirrel NYC is its own theater, but there's a lot of people who have done UCB there. So it's going to be, if you're part of those circles and we're a fan of UCB shows, it's going to be pretty cathartic for you, I think. So tune in.
fun.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks to Lanny Harms and John Murray. And thanks as well to our most generous patrons, Sam Bowers, Neil Weinstein, Justin Gardner, Grace Kogan, Carissa Eubank, and Brian Clark. If you're enjoying our show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever better podcasts can be found. Your subscription helps us grow, and your support is greatly appreciated. We'll be back next week when SNL returns with host Regina King and musical guest Nathaniel Rateliff. But until then, this has been episode number 127 of the Saturday Night Live Afterparty podcast. I'm Katherine Coleman, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.